SuieishinDojo. Yeah. SuieishinDojo. From silence to impact.
If you look around a modern martial arts studio today, whether they're practicing judo, kendo, karate, whatever, you're going to notice something incredibly specific about the top-tier competitors.
Oh, absolutely. The age gap.
Right. If you practice these modern systems, your comfortable physical peak, like the absolute apex of what your body can handle in that arena, it's going to hit a wall right around age 40.
Yeah. And after that, it's just, well, it's a steep drop-off.
Exactly. Once you cross that line, the injuries pile up, the speed drops, and the younger competitors just naturally start to take over. And on the surface, that makes perfect sense, right? Athletics belong to the young.
That's the assumption we all make, yeah.
Right. But today we are looking at some fascinating research that completely shatters that assumption. We're doing a deep dive into some translated historical accounts and a really rigorous, detailed document, specifically an XOC.
The timeline of Japanese martial arts.
That's the one, compiled by Dr. Kasemin Zugari. And what these sources reveal is that those modern systems you see today, they max out at age 40 because they were structurally altered.
They were completely reverse engineered, really.
Yeah. They were actually redesigned to be physical education. They stripped out the ancient natural human biomechanics that used to allow people to be unbeatably lethal well into their twilight years.
It forces a total reevaluation of what we think we're looking at when we, watch a martial arts tournament today.
That's for sure.
Because we have this romanticized assumption that the systems taught in modern dojos are these ancient, unbroken lineages of pure combat.
Right, like they're just passing down ancient secrets unchained.
Exactly. But the reality laid out in XOC is that the way a modern competitor moves is fundamentally different on a mechanical, muscular, and even psychological level from how a warrior moved 1,000 years ago. We are going to be tracing this fascinating evolution from unfiltered survival on a chaotic battlefield all the way to the safe, standardized sporting events of the 20th century.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really understand how we lost those biomechanical secrets, we sort of have to look at the environment that originally created them.
Yeah, you have to go back to the beginning.
And our sources point back to a very specific technological shift around the 10th century. Before this point, Japanese swords were largely straight.
Heavily influenced by Chinese designs, yeah.
Right. But then this new curved blade appears, the Nihonto. And this isn't just an aesthetic choice, is it? It completely changes the physics of a fight.
It absolutely changes the physics. Think about the mechanics of a straight sword. A straight blade essentially acts as an axe.
Okay.
It relies on a chopping motion, which inherently requires brute muscular force to, deliver damage.
You got to swing it hard.
Right. But the curve of the Nihonto, however, it optimizes the weapon for a drawing slice. So when a curved blade impacts a target, the geometry of the curve naturally pulls the edge along the surface as it travels.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, you don't have to hack through the target using your own raw muscle. You just have to guide the blade and let the curves do the cutting. It changes the entire physical requirement of the warrior.
It's like upgrading from a manual handsaw to a power tool.
That's a great way to put it.
The tool does the work, so your body doesn't have to overexert itself. And I want to push back on this a little because the sources talk about this era as being all about pure, unfiltered survival on these muddy, chaotic battlefields.
Oh, it was brutal.
Right. So if you are in the middle of a massive, bloody clash with hundreds of people, how does that environment birth a refined, disciplined art?
That's the paradox, isn't it?
Yeah, because if you look at something like, a saloon brawl in the Wild West that didn't turn into a refined science. Chaos usually just breeds more chaos. So how did the battlefield turn into a science?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to realize that a saloon brawl usually ends when someone gets knocked out. A battlefield ends when everyone on the other side is dead.
Right. High stakes.
Incredibly high.
Yeah.
In that environment, reliance on raw, muscle-like swinging as hard as you can, jumping around, burning through all your adrenaline, that is basically a death sentence.
Because you just gas out.
Exactly. That kind of athletic brawling gets you killed the moment you are exhausted or injured or, suddenly facing 3 opponents in ankle-deep mud.
So they needed a different approach.
Yeah, what these early warriors figured out, and we see this with foundational schools born in temples and on battlefields, like the monk Jian creating Nenri around 1350, is that true mastery wasn't about athletic exertion.
Okay.
It was about terrifying, calculated efficiency. We see the birth of legendary masters like Tsukahara Bokuden in 1489 and Kamizumi no Butsuna in 1508. They learned how to move, using their skeletal structure and gravity, rather than burning out their fast-twitch muscles.
Mechanical.
It was a physical science, yes, but equally a psychological one.
And there is a story in the translations that perfectly illustrates this psychological dominance. It takes place a bit later, during the Warring States era, and it involves a student of that legendary Tsukahara Bokuden, a man named Ishi Bokuya.
Oh, this is one of my favorite accounts.
It's so wild.
Yeah, so the accounts describe Ishi Bokuya as quiet, unassuming, and honestly, a bit odd-looking. He wasn't some massive, imposing brute.
Right, he didn't look like an action hero.
Or not at all. But his master saw a profound understanding of these mechanics in him. Ishi would train late into the night. Observers who caught glimpses of him practicing in the moonlight said he looked like a man possessed by a demon.
So creepy.
Yeah, he moved with his muted, lightning-like ferocity that made no sound.
And then enter the challenger. This brash, wealthy young swordsman named Ishihara Ichihei hears the rumors about Ishi and decides, he's going to make a name for himself.
Of course.
So he rolls into town with a massive entourage of 45 students, demanding a duel on a local bridge at sunset. And the weapon this challenger brings highlights the exact difference between raw muscle and true combat science that we were just talking about.
Oh yeah, it's absurd.
Ishihara brings a massive 4-foot-long wooden sword that is literally reinforced with heavy steel.
Wait, how do you even swing a piece of wood encased in steel without throwing your own back out?
You swing it by being young, incredibly strong, and relying entirely on athletic momentum.
It's pure force.
Exactly. It's an intimidating weapon designed to crush bones through sheer kinetic force. But it requires these wide stances and huge muscular windups. Ishii, on the other hand, approaches the bridge and casually picks up a standard mid-sized wooden sword he had just left, leaning against the railing.
So they face off on this bridge. Ishihara gets into his wide, aggressive stance. And Ishii just looks at him and says, "I've heard of you. You're known for your physical strength. You leap high and you crush low."
He reads him instantly.
Totally. And then, and this is where the psychology comes into play, the sources describe Ishii's entire demeanor transforming. His face contorts into an expression so terrifying they compared it to the warrior god Hachiman Marishiten.
Yeah, the demon face. And Ishii doesn't bounce around or try to mash the younger man's energy. He simply assumes his stance, completely grounded, and states a cold physical fact.
Right.
He tells Ishihara, "I can cut your throat faster than you can even begin to cut me with that heavy weapon."
And the challenger he just gives up.
Yep.
He immediately drops his massive steel-reinforced sword and admits defeat on the spot. He actually begs to become Ishii's disciple right then and there.
Because Ishihara, despite his arrogance, recognized what he was looking at. He realized that Ishii wasn't relying on acrobatics.
The fight was basically mathematically over before it began.
Precisely. Ishii had optimized his body and his mind to such a razor's edge. If Ishihara swung that heavy weapon, his massive windup would leave him exposed for a fraction of a second, and Ishii's relaxed, gravity-driven strike would take his throat before the heavy sword even reached its apex. That is the essence of the survival era. Pure, uncompromising efficiency.
So you have this culture of total lethal survival. But eventually, the world changes. How do you maintain an art of war when the wars actually stop?
You have to adapt.
Because if we follow an exoc, the nation undergoes a massive transition in the late 16th and 17th centuries. In 1588, Toyotomi Hideyoshi initiates the katanagari, the great sword hunt, disarming the peasantry.
Right, taking the weapons away.
Then, in 1603, Tokugawa Ieyasu establishes his peaceful military government, the Bakufu, in Edo. The massive civil wars are over. The nation is locked down under strict bureaucratic control.
A total shift inland.
It reminds me of what happens to wartime tech startups when a war ends. Suddenly you have all these highly specialized, deadly experts who have no war to fight. What do? Do they just open up dojos and become corporate wellness consultants?
Well, they do start to institutionalize, yeah. You see a massive formalization of the arts during this period. This is the era where Miyamoto Musashi creates Niten Ichiru around 1610 and later writes his famous Gorin no Sho in 1643.
The Book of Five Rings.
Exactly. Masters start cataloging their techniques, writing intricate manuals, and establishing formal schools. In 1639, the shogun even organizes the Gozen Shiai, a formal meeting of Japan's best practitioners to demonstrate their skills. It's becoming an institution. It's becoming structured.
But does peace mean these warriors immediately got soft? Because you pointed out in your notes that we should absolutely not confuse a peaceful era with a safe environment.
Oh, far from it. The gritty reality of survival just went deeper underground. The bureaucracy of the Edo period was intensely paranoid and violently restrictive. The commitment to survival remained absolute. It just took a different form.
Give us an example.
Well, there's this historical account from 1702 regarding the famous 47 loyal retainers, the Achigishi. One of them, a warrior named Horibes Kubei, needed to travel safely to Edo, completely undetected by the government's spies.
And he doesn't just, put on a fake mustache and a traveling cloak. The length that this guy goes to are horrifying.
Yeah, to disguise himself as an authentic, sickly traveler in a nation where checkpoints were strictly monitored, Yasubei violently alters his own body. He deliberately breaks his own front teeth.
Oh my God.
He intentionally burns his face. And to give himself the undeniable pallor, the sweat, and the physical symptoms of a severe illness, he repeatedly poisons himself with mercury.
Just let that sink in for a second for you listening. He ingested mercury knowing the horrific physiological damage it would cause just to survive a road trip.
It's extreme.
It proves that even though the era of massive battlefield clashes was over, the mindset of total, uncompromising survival was still the beating heart of these practitioners. They were still willing to destroy their own bodies if it meant accomplishing the mission.
But as time went on, that underlying lethality faced a very practical logistical challenge.
How to train.
Right. How do you practice life or death, split-second lethal combat, and pass that knowledge to the next generation without actually killing your training partners?
And here's where it gets really interesting, especially if you follow the timeline in the 18th century. Around 1755, Nakanishi Chubei introduces the shinai, the split bamboo sword, along with thick protective armor for practice.
A huge turning point.
And almost immediately, this births the massive explosion of new schools. Suddenly, anyone can train because the risk of accidental death drops to near zero.
It democratizes the practice. You can strike at full speed, you can spar aggressively, and your student gets to walk away with a bruise instead of, a missing limb.
But wait, once you introduce safety gear into a survival system, don't people naturally start gaming the system?
Oh, absolutely they do.
Think about playing laser tag instead of training for actual combat. In laser tag, you don't care if you expose your entire torso or if you get shot in the arm, as long as you score the headshot on your opponent.
Right, because there's no real consequence.
Right. You build physical habits based on the rules of the game, not the reality of a bullet. Doesn't the bamboo sword ruin the biomechanics of the real sword?
What's fascinating here is that the historical record shows this exact divergence happening almost immediately. The vast majority of the masses move toward this safe, gamified sparring.
Because it's fun.
It's fun and it's less terrifying. If a bamboo sword hits your forearm, it stings, but you don't lose the arm. So practitioners started adopting wider stances, leaving themselves open in ways that would be instantly fatal with a live blade, just to score a quick point with the bamboo.
Whoa.
They started bouncing on their toes to move faster, relying on athletic, fast-twitch muscles.
Which is the exact opposite of what Ishibokuya was doing on that bridge.
Precisely. Bouncing on your toes disconnects you from the ground. It ruins your skeletal alignment, but it wins bamboo tournaments. However, an XOC reveals that a few aging masters refused to compromise.
They held out.
They saw the gamification happening and they completely rejected it. They held on to the lethal biomechanical secrets of the past, dropping the body weight, moving from the hips, aligning the skeleton to absorb and generate force without muscular strain.
And this brings us to one of the most incredible stories from the translated sources taking place around the 1760s or 1770s. It features a master known as Old Man Izu Kamitono.
Izu Kamitono was a dying breed. He was an aging man, described as having long gray hair pulled back. But he was a master of the palm weapon arts. He always carried 4 long, heavily sharpened needles hidden directly inside his coiffure, his hairdo.
He just walked around with 4 lethal spikes woven into his hair.
Just in case.
And the level of his physical skill is just mind-blowing. The source details an event at the Shiba Palace in Edo, where this old man is asked to demonstrate his abilities. He is presented with a target, but it's not a bullseye on a hay bale.
No, it's much harder.
There is an intricate painting of a horse standing under a cherry tree, painted onto a solid cedar door. The challenge is for him to hit the 4 hoofs of the painted horse.
And remember, this is an elderly man. If he were relying on the fast twitch muscles and athletic bouncing of the new bamboo sword generation, he would be far past his prime. His shoulders would be stiff, his speed would be gone.
Right.
But his skill wasn't built on youthful muscle. It was built on that natural, highly refined biomechanical efficiency. Gravity doesn't diminish when you turn 60. Skeletal alignment doesn't disappear with age.
So he steps up to the mark. The aristocratic onlookers are watching, and in a blur, he draws the needle-like weapons from his hair and throws them. He perfectly hits all 4 hoofs of the painted horse.
And then he does it again, twice, without a single miss, perfectly sinking these needles into solid cedar wood. The sources say the needle marks stayed on that palace wall for over a century, until a fire destroyed the building in 1893.
That is wild.
It's a perfect encapsulation of the central thesis. True, raw efficiency doesn't diminish with age. Izu Kamitono didn't age out of his lethality because he wasn't playing a young man's athletic game. He was relying on pure, unadulterated human biomechanics.
But the world didn't want lethal old men hiding needles in their hair anymore.
No, they did not.
How does this rare, incredibly effective biomechanical science get completely replaced by the dojos we see in strip malls today? We're talking about the 19th and 20th centuries now.
Right. Well, it comes down to the modernization of an entire nation.
Yeah.
In 1853, Commodore Perry's arrival forces the opening of Japan.
The black ships.
Yes. And this leads to the Meiji Restoration by 1868, which is a period of massive, rapid industrialization and restructuring of the entire country. Japan wants to modernize its military, its education system, its entire society, and martial arts are swept right up in that mandate.
So instead of surviving battlefields, the goal shifts. You're no longer trying to produce a terrifying warrior who can cut a throat in the blink of an eye. You are trying to produce millions of standardized, healthy citizens for a modern industrialized nation.
And to do that, you have to completely redesign the curriculum. The Naxos timeline shows this massive shift incredibly clearly.
Yeah, the dates really line up.
You have the Geiken demonstrations in 1873, then Kanuch creating Kojukendudu in 1880. By 1895, they create the Greater Japan Martial Virtue Society. And then karate is officially introduced into schools in 1923.
So what does this all mean? We finally arrive at the martial arts that you and I know today.
This raises an important question, though. Because these arts were literally reformatted into physical education, gym class.
And to turn a lethal combat system into gym class, you have to strip out the danger. You strip out the psychological terror of a guy like Ishibakuya making a demon face.
You have to.
You strip out the microscopic, gravity-based biomechanics that allow an old man to throw needles through solid wood.
You replace those things with movements that are easy to teach to a classroom of 30 teenagers. Modern Budo was rebuilt around cardiovascular endurance, fast-switch muscle explosions, and raw flexibility.
Things kids are good at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is an amazing system for keeping kids healthy and building discipline, but mechanically. It conditions the body to move in ways that are totally unsuited for natural, lifelong efficiency. It relies on the very attributes that naturally fade as we get older.
Which brings us all the way back to the hook of this entire deep dive. This perfectly explains why a practitioner's upper age range for peak performance in modern martial sports tops out around 40.
Yep.
Once your athletic youth fades, once your fast-twitch muscles slow down and your joints get stiff from bouncing on your toes for 2 decades, the modern system no longer supports you.
It betrays you as you age.
Because the system wasn't designed for lifelong survival. It was designed for high school gymnasium.
It is a profound historical trade-off. I mean, humanity gained mass appeal, we gained safety, and we developed a wonderful global system of physical education. We lost the raw, enduring efficiency of the original arts.
Yeah.
We lost the knowledge of how to use the human body to its maximum lethal potential, regardless of age.
What a massive paradigm shift we just explored. I mean, we started looking at how a simple curve in a 10th century sword blade transformed muscle-based chopping into biomechanical science. We saw how true combat masters optimized their skeletal structure and their psychology to win fights before they even started.
Demon face.
Right. And we watched how peaceful eras forced warriors to either poison themselves to survive the bureaucracy or adopt bamboo swords that slowly eroded their real-world habits. And finally, we saw how the modernization of an entire country intentionally traded the lethal secrets of old men for the standardized fitness of the youth.
It really makes you look at a modern martial arts tournament through an entirely different lens.
It really does.
But the implications stretch far beyond just combat or history. It leaves you with a really provocative thought about how we operate today.
How so?
Well, in our own modern lives, in our careers, and our daily routines, how often do we unconsciously trade raw, enduring effectiveness for systems that are simply safer and more standardized?
Oh, wow.
Are we constantly prioritizing the points of the modern gamified systems we live in while slowly losing the natural edge that could sustain us for a lifetime?
That is a very heavy concept to carry with you today. If your definition of a comfortable physical peak relies purely on the artificial rules of the game you are currently playing, what is going to happen to you when you finally have to step off the mat?
SuieishinDojo. Yeah. SuieishinDojo. From silence to impact. Sell fantasy. This is pressure and pain, cold mind, shark focus, discipline in my veins, real combat movement. No scripted display, every step calculated when the shadows invade. Key haunting the body, survival in the brain. Years under pressure turn instinct into aim. No fake masters, no internet fame. We train for the chaos when the world goes insane. Dark shadows sin screaming through the smoke and rain. Psycho drums hit like a war campaign. Subconscious reactions when adrenaline drains. Combat physiology breaking mental chains. SuieishinDojo. Shadow in the water, warrior soul alive. SuieishinDojo. From the basics to the blade we survive. SuieishinDojo. No fear, no illusion, no disguise. Mind, body, spirit, weaponized. Weaponized. Emoji stands while the enemy shakes. Calm breathing under pressure when the whole ground breaks. Ambidextrous movement, every angle precise. Real combat doesn't care if you're weak inside. Druckle root flow with the predator gaze. Koto view impact like explosive grenades. Ancient principles adapted to today. Old warrior knowledge in a modern age. Pulse low, eyes locked, strategy first. Silence before violence when survival bursts. Pain and including lessons earned, not thought. Real transmission cannot be taught by frauds. From Cuba to the world, SuieishinDojo. Warrior mindset, survival culture.